What's good, guys? The Novice back with another book review. This time, it's The Children of Virtue and Vengeance. Guys, this book is the sequel to a book that I reviewed a while back called Children of Blood and Bone. For people who don't know, it's essentially about a world, like a fictionalized uh, part of Africa where there's gods, there's magic, people who wield magic, and then there's like kings and people running from the kingdom because they're feared and all that stuff. It's basically like Star Wars, Last Airbendery type stuff, but the African equivalent. Even Percy Jackson can throw in that kind of vibe there. If you're aware of Percy Jackson and how those books are influenced by like Greek mythology, Roman, all that stuff. That's if you get the reference. I'll just read the blurb to you quickly and then tell you my likes and dislikes. So here's the blurb for this book, right? Children of Virtue and Vengeance. They killed my mother. They took our magic. They tried to bury us. Now we fight. After battling the impossible, Zele and Amari have finally succeeded in bringing magic back to the land of Orisha. But the ritual was more powerful than they could have imagined, reigniting the powers of not only the Magi, but of nobles with magic ancestry too. Now Zele struggles to unite the Magi in an Orisha where the enemy is just as powerful as they are. But with civil war looming on the horizon, Zele finds herself at a breaking point. She must discover a way to bring the kingdom together or watch as Orisha tears itself apart. That's the blurb for this book, essentially. So, this book starts, and it's not apparent immediately because I'm slow and naive. But the first thing I liked about this book is they remind you this is wartime, and that tone and that mood that they set makes me like this book a lot. I'll give an example. The very first chapter, second chapter, there's an event that happens in Lagos. People don't know who haven't seen my other review. Lagos is where in this world, in this kingdom, is where the royal palace is. So the victors of the first book, the main characters, they come back from the place where they were in the last book, and they're expecting like a change in the status quo. We brought back magic. Now things are going to be in our favor, so on and so forth. But they've heard about riots. They've heard about revolutionaries, savagery taking place, stuff that would likely happen if you disturb the natural order, no matter how good or bad like a certain places. You hear about this all the time in like certain Daredevil. I've been rewatching it on Netflix. Wilson Fisk, the top dog, criminal dies. All the gangs are like having wars with each other, and it affects the neighborhood, right? It affects the city. It's essentially like that. They brought back magic, but it wasn't that simple to bring peace. So they go to the main palace and they meet a character who literally rocks. That she has earthquake powers, and she rocks the entire like area that they're in, and it causes damage to like civilians and so on. And that immediately says, oh, you know what, they're still fugitives. Like nothing, in some ways nothing has changed, but everything else has arguably even gotten worse. And that showed me that things aren't a fairy tale, right? That's why I liked that reminder that this is a time of war. This ain't a time of peace. If you watch a Marvel movie, so on, people have certain levels of plot armor that is really annoying. And so does this book as well, but I'll get to that with the floor. But for the most part, I feel like this book is a great way of like a palate cleanser from those type of stories that you would see in like a Marvel movie, certain sci-fi, where people love characters so much, just such a popular demand, that they make them survive anything, like a Tony Stark in the Marvel Universe. People who just have way too much power beyond what they should have, in my opinion. And I didn't feel that way because of the nature of this book and the tone. So that's the first thing, wartime, right? And the tone it sets. The second thing I liked is how they expanded on the power sets and the magical abilities. So there's things that Zele does in this book. I'm a fan of a book series growing up called Percy Jackson and the Olympians. And there's a character called Nico Valentine. He's the son of Hades, long story short, and he has like certain abilities that come with that. But he's supposed to be someone who's just like a certain level of OP because he is the son of one of the big three gods in this world in Greek mythology: Hades, Poseidon, and Zeus. So he's meant to be like a certain level of powerful. I feel like they didn't flex that ability that you associate with Hades the way they did with the main character in this book called Zele, right? She, for people who don't know, who haven't seen my other review, she has the ability to conjure up spirits and communicate with the dead. And there are things that she does in this book. I don't even want to spoil it, but there's things that she does in this book that make me think, wow, what if they could do this for other characters that you associate in other mythologies? Maybe like envious as a fan of other mythologies that I feel like they haven't really squeezed that out of other characters in other worlds and series with those kind of abilities. But with Zele in this book, she is so powerful. I love it. And there's context to it because she trains. That's what I love about this book. This Zele is Rey from Star Wars if I understood the context behind her training and if it felt like more natural. Because they show her practicing in certain scenes where her and her clan of Reapers, that's what they call people with her abilities, her and her clan of Reapers in this world are people who they've without actually I don't want to spoil it, but let's just say that she has reasons both in because of the war that's going on and just for practical reasons to practice using her abilities, and they show that in certain chapters of this book and certain points, and I love that about this book. Thirdly, one of the things I liked about this book is that, you know what, everyone was just a bit unlikable to me at various points. Like some people, it felt like they gave up when they shouldn't have. Some people felt like they did like unspeakable things. But going back to my first point, like this is wartime, is just a bit more darker. It reminds you of the cost of events taking place in this world, right? Amari, one of the other main characters in the book, she does something late in this book, which to me was like unacceptable. But then I thought about it, and I thought to myself, you know what? I think considering like the history of actual war, I think I kind of understand it. It was gonna be a hot take if you've read this book and you know what I'm talking about. But I think I kind of understand why she would do that in her mind, because she's justifying it. I'll just give a hint without spoiling. The gas plan, the gas plan. That's what I'll say. In her mind, she's thinking, I'm gonna clear innocence out of the way. I don't know if I've given it away. You know what I'm going on about. But I feel like that's how she justified it. In her mind, she's saying, I'm gonna clear innocence out of the way and make sure it's just me and my people go and head up with the army and the nobles of Orisha and get them out of the way so we can take care of this kingdom for the future. That's how I thought about it. I actually don't mind it now. Yeah, that's a hot take. If you read this book and you find out what I'm talking about, but yeah, it doesn't bother me anymore. It bothered me when I read it. Like, how could she do that? Like something so unspeakable. But it doesn't bother me in the context of wartime. It reminded me. That's an example of one of like a couple of things that reminded me that when you're in harsh times, you have to do you have to make those hard calls and those decisions to make sure that, you know, future generations and certain innocent civilians right now can sleep at night. It's funny how it takes magic to make me think of things that way. I talked about this. I did a review on the first 3 episodes of The Boys, the TV series, and I spoke about that. It's funny how in both season 1 and 2, with some of the early episodes, that it takes fantastical characters to make me think of like real world issues in a certain way. Start to do with like obviously Me Too and social movements, but and so on. And it's a bit sad on my part, but I think it helps. So this is why we talk about the stuff that we like, because when it's done right, it's usually not pandering, but it ironically ends up teaching you something about the culture that you're living in right now, if not the history of human culture. And I like that. I really like that. That's the last thing I like about this book, that it reminds you of that the harshness and people making certain decisions and hard calls. My only flaw in this book is probably I don't like the arc of Anon. Anon seems naive still to me. Maybe he learns the hard way that he's not in control of certain events that happens in this kingdom. Um, but nevertheless, he's still a character who's just in the way for me, and I'd rather like he just not be around, because I feel like Amari got a bit naive-ish, like reminded me of him at times. But no one is exactly like him to me. He just bothers me. I don't like him as a character. I'd rather like just get rid of him. And then also another thing that bothered me was the very ending. It ends on a weird cliffhanger, and there's an epilogue, which I hope they're not doing what I think they're doing. Like the boat scene made no sense unless they're doing something that I think they're doing, which is an homage to certain things that have gone on maybe in African history. I hope it's not that. I hope I'm wrong. But that's my first thought that came to mind. I think it has something to do with something I don't want to say, because I hope I'm wrong. Yeah, I didn't like the ending of this book. It was no, thank you. But other than that, guys, on the whole, I liked more things about this book than not. Tell me what you guys think down below. If you've read it, would you read it? If you haven't already, would you read the first book, Children of Blood and Bone? Like I said, tell me down below. If you like this video, please press that thumbs up button. If you like, feel free to check out all of my other videos as well. Other than that, I'm off, signing off. Salute.